welcome to Policing TV and welcome Serena Kennedy, KPM, Chief Constable of Merseyside. Um, Serena and I recorded a video a short time ago focusing on Serena's career prior to her move to Merseyside. So early days in Greater Manchester and then on to Cheshire. This video is going to focus on your time with Merseyside. Initially, I think as Assistant Chief Constable, and then becoming ultimately Chief Constable some 5 years ago, and due to retire at the end of this month, August 2025. So, um, can I start here, Serena, by you took over, my recollection is from Andy Cook, who
That's right.
subsequently went on to join His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, and quite a well-renowned uh, uh, now former Chief Constable. Was it with any trepidation that you took on that Chief Constable role from Andy Cook?
I mean, I'd been part of Andy's chief officer team there by then for about 4.5 years. So it was Andy who recruited me to be his assistant chief constable in charge of investigation and intelligence, and then it was Andy who recruited me into to be his deputy, whilst he was kind of the latter half of him being chief constable. But yeah, Andy had been in Merseyside Police for 30 years out of his 34 years service, an incredibly well-respected chief constable and well-known nationally. So, I said at the time when I started back in April 2021 that it was big shoes to fill in terms of stepping into the role of chief constable within Merseyside. But stepping in, you need to be true to yourself. You need to be true to your values, and I led the force, and I've led the force in the way in which I believed Merseyside Police needed to, move forward to stay fit for the times that we have faced as an organisation. But Merseyside Police was in a really strong place when Andy retired and went on to work for HMIC FRS. So it wasn't like I was taking over a force that needed rebuilding. I was taking over a force that was in a strong position, and for me, it was about enhancing community first, which is and was our force vision.
So what I'm hearing there is an element of continuity, but then an element of change as well, and the change both reflecting changing times, but also reflecting your own vision of where the force might go. Do you recall some 5 years ago, did you set yourself any sort of personal targets as to what you were aiming to achieve? Particular areas perhaps that you were going to focus on? You mentioned one there, for example. Um, and assuming that there were such aspirations, such targets, how did you go about achieving them?
So, the things I will say to you now are the things that I said to the then Police and Crime Commissioner, Jane Kennedy, in my interview. I wanted to enhance community first. I wanted to maintain our first-class reputation, and I wanted to move the organisation forward, because that's really important. To say policing and indeed our communities are changing so frequently. It's important that we are continually seeking to move the organisation forward. I set 6 clear priorities for the organisation at that time. They were around serious and organised crime, because of the challenge we have in Merseyside around serious and organised crime. They were vulnerability, because of that focus on protecting the most vulnerable in our communities. It was community engagement. We were already on that journey, but for me, it was really important to make sure that we have that strong relationship with our communities, and that we were involving our communities in building stronger and more resilient communities, and involving them within the problem-solving process. Well-being of the organisation. If I, as Chief Constable, are going to deliver my commitment to put our communities first, I need to have a well, happy and resilient workforce. And when I became Chief, we were still in lockdown for COVID. and the impact on the staff had been significant. You know, the organisation was tired. They'd worked long shifts through that whole period of COVID. They were the people that were having to come into work, not knowing what they were dealing with on a day-to-day basis from a COVID perspective, and those concerns and fears about taking COVID back into their families. So well-being remained a priority of mine. And also prevention. Obviously, you'll know, Bernard, I am now the national lead for prevention and chair the Prevention Coordination Committee. But prevention has been a strong focus throughout my service, and it was one of the things that I said that was important to me, to make sure that, you know, we can't arrest our way out of the crime and the incidents that we're dealing with. And for me, it's much better for us to have a look at how we get upstream of that demand, work with our partners and work with communities to prevent people becoming victims of crime or indeed becoming involved in crime. And the other final priority that I set was around inclusion, recognising that policing is not reflective of the communities that we're serving across all of our protected characteristics. And if we are going to build trust and confidence, then we need to focus on inclusion. And again, you know, when I was interviewed to be the Chief Constable of Merseyside, and throughout my time, there has been issues that have rocked trust and confidence in our communities. So, you know, my overall number one priority, I suppose, through all of that, is to make sure that we improve trust and confidence in policing.
So specifically on prevention, so the National Police Chiefs Council lead here in the UK, or in England and Wales, at least, on prevention. What aspects of that would you identify, not just for those watching from the UK, but those watching from abroad, that you would judge particularly successful and worthy of greater emphasis? I'm mindful here, for example, that the new commissioner, chief commissioner of Victoria Police in Australia, himself a former New Zealand police commissioner, has identified prevention as a key aim of the work that he does. He was successful in that during his two-term time in New Zealand as their commissioner. But from a UK perspective, what aspects of prevention have proved particularly successful and are you particularly proud of?
So the work that we've been doing with the former government and the current government around violence reduction partnerships, hotspot policing, the new prevention strategy around young people. It's that focus on young people and the work that we can do across partnerships to identify either those people who are at risk of becoming exploited or those who are at risk of becoming the exploiters, and the approach that we take that, whether it be across local authorities, whether it be across health, whether it be across education, that we kind of say spot those signs earlier and have commissioned services, probably not from a policing perspective, but policing being part of the solution, as I say, to identify those young people and indeed those vulnerable adults and make sure that we can wrap services around them to stop them entering that life of crime. So that work with the Home Office has been and is ongoing and particularly successful, and that comes under the leadership of our serious violence and our public health approach to policing. But there's a really wide variety of work that we get involved with within the Prevention Coordination Committee. So it's the approach to integrated offender management. And again, that is all about working with people who've already kind of been classified as offenders. But what is it that we can do with those offenders, working with them intensively to stop them re-offending? There's the work that we do in relation to problem solving, so that making sure every officer is taking a problem solving approach. So that could be something as simple as going to a burglary and thinking, right, what is it at this house? What advice can I provide to the homeowner around preventing them becoming a victim again? Whether it's cutting down their hedges, whether it's sorting out the locks on their house, whether it's CCTV cameras, ring doorbells, just those simple things. You know, my ambition is that we've got every officer and staff in the country thinking prevention first, which I know is the New Zealand mantra in relation to prevention. But they are thinking, what is it I can do today to stop officers and staff and partners having to come back here at a later date? And we've worked really closely with the College of Policing, looking at their curriculum that's delivered to make sure that officers are thinking that in that way.
So I know that the NPCC, the Home Office, indeed the College of Policing are good generally at documenting the work of the various NPCC portfolios and making sure that those elements are shared. And I'm sure that we can provide access to those materials should it be needed. One final question in this second video. It relates to um, becoming a chief constable. Now, I've heard from former and indeed serving chief constables that it can be a bit of a lonely role to take. I know also that certainly in the UK, the chief network and the support network is very good. Um, I'm intrigued though. Are there things as a chief constable that you didn't expect? The thinking here specifically about elements that might be useful to those taking on a chief role or a commissioner role or a leadership role, even. Doesn't just have to be at chief constable level, but any nuggets for us as we bring this second video to a close as to what it is about being a chief and indeed being a leader that you would particularly identify as learning points for others.
I think as you step into the executive suite, it's understanding politics with a small p and politics with a large P, and taking the time to make sure that you understand those politics and you spend time investing in understanding them and building relationships. Having just been the cohort director on the executive leadership programme at the College of Policing, I said it's really important to build those relationships during peacetime. Because when you're in the middle of a critical incident, that is the wrong time to be trying to understand how you navigate your way through engaging with the Home Office, the Policing Minister, the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister's office, but also how you spend time engaging across your local and regional stakeholders. So I would say certainly as a Chief Constable, but take your time once you step into that executive to really, really understand those, say, politics and partnerships and those relationships, because the strength of those connections and relationships is what will get you through those tough, critical times.
Time has flown by yet again in this second video. I'm going to draw this second video then to a close. We're going to come on in the third video to looking to the future. But again, for the time being, can I thank you so much, Serena Kennedy, QPM, for your time that you've devoted here to Policing TV. We'll pick up on the third video very shortly indeed. Thank you once again.